Good morning to Your Highness, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Laurie Santos, and I'm so excited to be speaking at the Mohammed bin Zayed Majlis for Future Generations. Today, I want to talk with you about what Emirati youth can do to protect their mental health during this challenging time. Now, it's no secret that this has been an incredibly difficult time when it comes to our mental health. We've been coping with a tremendous amount of change. The COVID-19 crisis has really changed the way that we interact in the world. It's changed our routines. It's caused a tremendous amount of anxiety, uncertainty, and just frustration. And the research shows that it's incredibly important to maintain your mental health, even during these difficult times. Sometimes when times are tough, we think, well, I'll focus on my mental health after this challenging time. But the research really shows that it's critical to pay attention to your mental health now, especially as a youth trying to navigate your future. The research really shows that happiness matters more than we think. For example, there's research suggesting that happiness really matters for our job attainment and our salary. One study measured cheerfulness in 18-year-olds and found that individuals who were more cheerful at 18 were the ones most likely to have a job at age 27 and have a job that they liked. The research also showed that cheerfulness at 18 actually predicted salaries into individuals' 20s and 30s. And the research shows why that might be. Our happiness levels seem to be correlated with our innovation. One study found that if you gave doctors a sort of difficult medical problem to solve, and you allowed them to feel happier beforehand by watching a simple video, like a sort of funny video on the internet, the doctors actually solved more of the challenging medical problems because they were in a good mood. And so the research really suggests that our job performance, even our creative thinking, might depend on our mental health situation. It might depend on our mood and our happiness levels. But it's not just our job and the economy and our innovative thinking that seems to rest on our happiness. There's also research showing that our happiness seems to affect our immune function. One study by Cohen and colleagues actually looked at this in the context of rhinoviruses. These days, we're talking about coronaviruses, but rhinoviruses are the viruses that cause a common cold. They brought subjects into the lab, exposed all subjects to these rhinoviruses, and then just tried to test who got sick. And what they measured was people's positive style. Individuals who had a high positive style, like you're joyful and happy all the time, versus individuals who had a low positive style. You're kind of down in the dumps and not feeling so good. What did the researchers find? Well, what they found is that people caught rhinoviruses at almost twice the rate when they were individuals in the low positive style group versus the high positive style group. So the research suggests that your happiness levels might be affecting your immune function, something we really need to pay attention to right now. And so all this goes to say our mental health matters. We need hacks that we can do to feel better now. But what can we do? That's what I'm going to talk to you all about today. I want to give you hints about specific things you can do to feel better. And the most important of these 4 strategies for coping that I'm going to go through today seems to be the biggest one you can intervene on. And that's going to be my coping tip number 1, which is that if you want to be happier, you need to find ways to achieve better social connection. All the available research shows that we're happier when we're being social. We're happier when we're spending time with other people, no matter what our personality type. And this is, of course, much trickier during the time of physical distancing when we're not around people more often. So what can we do to really make sure we're promoting our social connection and our social health during this tricky time? Well, the one piece of advice I give my students is that they need to pay attention to what I'm going to call nutritious social time. You got to make sure you're getting in your social nutrition. If I put up an image like this and showed you all these healthy fruits and vegetables, and I asked you, is this stuff nutritious? You'd say yes. You know that because if you ate this food, you would mindfully feel better. If you noticed how you felt, you would feel good. This is what we need to do in the context of social cognition. We need to make sure we are feeling better. And the way we can do that is to make sure we're getting in nutritious kinds of social time. What are ways to do this when we're socially distanced? Well, one simple way is to just pick up the phone and call a friend. This, like creating healthy food, might have a bit of a startup cost, but the act of connecting in real time with somebody, picking up the phone to actually talk to someone for once, can actually boost our well-being more than we think. The other thing we can do to form nutritious social connections is to make sure that we're engaging with technology to connect with one another. Picking up the computer to have a little Zoom time with some friends, picking up FaceTime and things like that. As long as you're connecting in real time and seeing the emotions of the people you're connecting with, the research really shows that this can be important for your social connection. What about another way we sometimes socially connect? Not picking up the phone to talk to somebody or Zooming in real time, just kind of connecting over social media. What does this do to our social connection? Well, what the research really shows is that this doesn't work in a lot of the ways we think. It might not be nutritious in the way that we're hoping our social connection can be. If anything, it might deplete us over time, as we'll get to in just a second. And so the research shows that if we want to be healthier during this challenging time, we need better social connection. But we need to pay attention to how these technologies that we might be using to socially connect are affecting us. And that gets to coping tip number 2. If we want to be happier, we need to be mindful about using our technology. We need to take a quick mindful technology check. And mindfulness is something I know you've heard about a lot, but might seem a little strange to think about in the context of using your phone. Often we kind of pick it up just on a whim or because we're bored or anxious or something. Is this really the best way to use our technology? Or could we find ways to use it in ways that are really mindful, where we're paying attention to how we're using our phone and what we're getting it, kind of paying attention to if it's nutritious, so to speak. And this is advice that I've taken from the fantastic journalist Catherine Price. She has a wonderful book called How to Break Up with Your Phone, where she argues that whenever we pick up our phone, we should use this little hack. We should think of the acronym WWW. And this acronym stands for what for, why now, and what else. So when you pick up your phone, what were you picking it up for? Was it to check your email, to do a quick social media check, or to look at the weather? Like, was there a purpose, or did you just kind of pick it up because it was rote and you didn't mean to? The other question is why now? Why did you pick up the phone right now? What were you like thinking and feeling in your body? Was it really for a task? Maybe you were feeling anxious, maybe you were feeling bored. And then you could kind of ask whether the why now is the right way to pick up your phone. And that gets to the final question, what else? What else could you be doing instead of picking up your phone? What's the opportunity cost of using your phone then? Maybe you could be talking to a friend or a family member in real life. Maybe you could be engaging with the world, looking out at the beautiful scenery, paying attention to what's present, thinking about what you're grateful for. What's the opportunity cost of using your phone then? Catherine has argued that these WWW questions can allow you to develop a more mindful relationship with your phone, which can actually allow you to use these tools that we really need right now, but in a way that actually boosts our happiness rather than reduces it. And so I hope when you engage mindfully with your phone, you'll remember this, pick it up, WWW, what for, why now, and what else. And so that's how we can sort of take a mindful tech check. We should be using these technologies now. They're more important than ever in the context of COVID-19, but we need to use them mindfully. And that gets to my coping tip number 3, another thing that can be really tricky right now, but is super important, which is that we need to find ways to be social in another respect. We need to be doing more for other people. Every available study of happy people suggests that happy people are more social. They tend to volunteer their time for causes they care about, and controlled for income, they tend to donate their money to the kinds of things that really matter. They're much more other-oriented than self-oriented. And I think this is something that we can be picking up on even during the time of COVID. If you want to be happier, you need to focus on others rather than yourself. But what are ways to do that? Well, of course, money is a great way that you can sort of help out other people in need. Some of us are saving a little bit more money right now because maybe we're not going to our local coffee shop every day. Maybe you're saving some money on your commute, not going to work if you're studying remotely, not going to school, right? Could you actually use the money you're saving from your commute, or maybe things you're not spending right now, to donate it to a good cause, or even to donate it to someone in need? But we're not just getting a little extra money right now. Many of us are getting a little bit more free time, right? This like COVID means sometimes our plans are canceled. We're just having a lot more free time than usual. Rather than just kind of plopping down and watching TV or something, is there a way that you can use that free time to connect with others? Volunteer your time for something you care about, phone bank for a good cause, or even just use that time to check in on someone in need who might need an ear to kind of see how they're doing. This, the research suggests, is coping tip number 3. We need to be doing more for other people. And with that little bit of windfalls of time and money that we might have during this strange time that is COVID, we can put those to use for other people. The research suggests this will make us happier than spending this money and time on ourselves. And that gets us to coping tip number 4, something we all have to get through during this time, which is that if we want to be happier, we need to become more present, but we need to do it in a particular way. Right now it's hard to be present. We're thinking about all the things we're anxious about. As Emirati youth, all of you are probably thinking about schoolwork and your futures and jobs and social life and things. We tend not to be in the present because our mind is going off in a million different directions. But the research shows if we can engage in practices that allow us to be more present, we will be a lot happier. And these can include practices like mindfulness, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. The simple act of just following your breath over time for a few minutes a day, the research shows, can reduce the neural activity that's associated with mind wandering. It can actually let you be more present. But being more present isn't the only challenge right now, because even if we're being present, sometimes we need to be present with emotions that don't feel so good. I'm not sure what your text threads look like these days, but mine is filled with emojis that look like this, where I'm kind of sad and upset, right? We're going through a lot of negative emotions right now during the context of COVID-19. And so how do we deal with this? Well, our instinct is to avoid our negative emotions, to kind of shut them off and pretend they're not happening. But the research shows that that's not a great strategy. In fact, one study by James Gross, the Stanford professor, and his colleagues forced people to sort of suppress their emotions. They watched a sad or a disgusting video, and he told them, please try not to feel that. The question is, what were the consequences? Well, there were lots of consequences, and the consequences were bad. What Gross finds is that people tend to report thinking errors after suppressing their emotions. They did worse on a memory test. So you're literally affecting your cognition and your thinking when you're trying to suppress your emotions. But you're also negatively affecting your body. In fact, Gross and colleagues actually found that people actually showed cardiac stress through the act of suppressing their emotions. In other words, you're actually hurting your heart and hurting your body by doing this. And so the research really shows that if we want to be happier, we need to find ways to be present even with these bad feelings too. Things like sadness and anger and so on. We need to get through them rather than trying to suppress these emotions. But how do we do that? Well, again, I think an acronym here can help. And this time I'm going to use an acronym called RAIN. It's a meditation practice popularized by the meditation teacher Tara Brach. And RAIN actually stands for a couple things. It stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. The idea is anytime you're having a negative emotion, whether that's sadness or frustration or anger, that's when you take a moment to realize, I need RAIN right now. It's like when you pick up your phone, you think www. When you experience a negative emotion, think RAIN. First, recognize, I'm in this negative emotion. Which is it? Is this frustration? Is this sadness? Is this overwhelm? Like really recognize and call out that emotion. Then you do the A, which is to allow. You say, I'm going to allow this emotion to be there just as it is. You don't have to like it, but you just have to tolerate it for a little while. And you tolerate it through the I, which is to investigate. Like a kind of curious scientist, can you investigate what this emotion feels like in your body? Is it making your chest tight, or maybe your jaws tight, or you're kind of tensing up your brow? What kind of cravings does it cause? Maybe you want to run away and check your phone or eat something or use a substance, right? Like, are you trying to run away from your emotions? Investigate and watch the emotion over time. And what the research shows is that emotions are like a wave. If you take time to really pay attention to it and investigate further, like a wave, it'll kind of crest and go away. And that's when you do the N, nurture. Not just trying to avoid this emotion, but how can you really nurture yourself? What can you do to self-compassionately take care of yourself now? That could be reaching out to a friend. That could be, canceling a meeting to take some time off, doing something nice for yourself, right? What can you do to nurture yourself given that emotion? The research shows that by engaging in RAIN, we can actually reduce burnout and improve our mental health over time. And so through these practices like meditation, especially through the meditation practice like RAIN, we really can find ways to get through emotions, even when those emotions are negative. So that's coping tip number 4. I hope I've convinced you that you can all be more present through these practices and that these things will help. And so that were my quick 4 coping tips that you can use during right now. I'm so happy that you've invited me to be part of the Mohammed bin Zayed Majlis for Future Generations. Thank you to His Highness for inviting me and to all the organizers for setting this up. I've really appreciated sharing these tips with you today.
My name is Khawla Hammad. I am the founder and CEO of Takalam Online Counseling, which is a platform for mental well-being. It connects mental health professionals with individuals and organizations through a seamless digital experience using video calls, audio calls, and instant live messages. I started working in the sector about a year ago, and it was based on a personal experience where I struggled seeking help in a convenient manner. I saw the opportunity and decided to create a solution that would help people access mental health services in a convenient manner that is private and affordable. So there is a misconception about happiness in general. Sometimes it's okay not to feel happy. Sometimes it's okay to accept how we feel. And the only difference here would be knowing how to deal with the situation through seeking the right support, through seeking a professional help. A few tips would be to really think of it as a way of unlocking your potential. So you don't necessarily have to be mentally ill to seek mental health services. It could be a way for you to deal with daily life stresses, to cope with difficult situations, and looking at it more as a proactive approach, more of a preventative approach, rather than seeking help when really things go very bad. So having mental health checkups is as important as having physical checkups. And it's something that has been neglected for a while because of the stigma, because of the negative misconception around mental health. I would encourage everyone to take it more seriously and consider working with professionals. In my opinion, thriving in the next normal has a lot of potential. This is the time where you can learn a new skill, or you can take a new venture.